It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Manic Monday, good evening and welcome to It Zimbabwe. This is ZiFM Sport, your favorite sports show. After a weekend of fantastic sports action, record-breaking sports action in England. Pep Guardiola needed 4 years, but when he finally managed to do it at Anfield, he put 4 goals past a sorry Reds. In the United States of America, Tom Brady now has 7 Super Bowl titles, which is more than any franchise in the NFL. Truly one of the greatest all-time athletes of this generation. And then in Cameroon, Morocco, 2 goals to the good versus Mali. 2 good all tournament and deservedly crowned back-to-back champions at that tournament. We're also going to be bringing you some interesting news on the home front. Zimbabwe women's cricket takes center stage as they are wrapping up preparations today for their historic one-day and T20 international series against Pakistan that gets underway tomorrow. My name is Mike Madoda. With me is Barry Manandi, Alois Munjira, Chris Midzi, and our producer, Sean Tafirenyika. What a cracking show it promises to be.
We'll take you around the world in 60, beginning down under where Serena Williams launched her latest bid for a record-equaling 24th Grand Slam with a 56-minute demolition of Laura Siegemund at the Australian Open. We'll head over to Bangladesh where Kyle Myers made an unbeaten 210 on debut to help West Indies snatch an extraordinary 3-wicket victory over Bangladesh in the first test. And in the United States, Brooks Koepka upstaged Jordan Spieth and Xander Schauffele as he produced a spectacular finish to win the Waste Management Phoenix Open for the second time.
We'll take our play of the day, smack dab in the middle of the show. Today's Manic Monday, as you heard earlier, then it's time for the Castelaga World Football Report. We begin at Chan, where Morocco became the first team to successfully defend the African Nations Championship trophy with a 2-0 win over Mali and Cameroon last night. Then we'll talk you in the Premier League in England. We'll talk you through that win of Manchester City's at Anfield against Liverpool. 4-1 it ended. And in Serie A, Juventus head coach Andrea Pirlo lauded Cristiano Ronaldo's adaptability as the defending Serie A champions beat Roma 2-0. And we'll also have updates from La Liga and the Bundesliga. All makes for an absolutely manic show. That's why it's Manic Monday. Here's Sean Paul, SP, Jesse Royal, and Mutabaruka. It's called Guns of Navarone.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
As always, would love to hear from you on social media. Follow and interact with at ZiFM Sport or at Barry Manandi, at Chris Mizzi, at Gazaman14 for Alois Munjira, at Sean Tafirenyika, and at Mike Madoda. Would love to chat with you about anything sport, local as well as international. And don't forget, you can always listen in to the show at your own leisure on our YouTube channel at ZiFM Sport. Now let's get into news from the home front. Zimbabwe women's cricket is front and center, and they've wrapped up preparations today for their historic one-day and T20 international series against Pakistan that gets underway tomorrow. The series, which marks the end of Zimbabwe's 2-year hiatus from international cricket, will be played behind closed doors at Harare Sports Club in line with the coronavirus lockdown measures. The hosts have been locked in a training camp for the past week, and they upped their preparations during the weekend when they named their final squad, led by their captain Mary Ann Musonda. Let's hear from Musonda, who says that her team is ready for the series despite limited preparation time.
Obviously the time has been limited. We have not been able to prepare the way we would have wanted. Probably a couple more games, a couple more sessions for everyone. but given the circumstance, we have had to bootstrap and make do with the time that's there. So I think we'll be in good nick. Played Pakistan in a couple of years, so all we have is footage from their games they have played before against other teams, and recently we've also been following their tour of South Africa.
A historic series, this one, the first time that Pakistan is touring Zimbabwe, Chris, and it's another feather in the cap for Zimbabwe cricket, seeing as they've managed to get the ship moving, even when other sporting codes are shutting down, have stopped action. Zimbabwe cricket seems to have a plan.
Yeah, Zimbabwe cricket seems to have a plan. They're working. They're managing to get things done. They're managing to play out what their plans had been, regardless of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's kudos to them, because you have to be incredibly organized. You have to gate the trust of the government officials, the SRC, who then give permission for these things. So it's a feather in their cap. Zimbabwe cricket is going in leaps and bounds in terms of their organization. Like we saw the women's series that was running, the local women's series that was running. And obviously this is then a result of that as well, is that they're able to go on and go ahead and play Pakistan.
Well, the players that will take on Pakistan will be chosen from this squad: Marianne Musonda, who's the skipper; Ashley Ndiraya, Precious Maranga, Pelaija Mujaji, Chiedza Dururu, Modesta Mpachikwa, Kelly Ndlovu, Tasmin Granger, Esther Mbofana, Francesca Chipare, Lauren Piri, Nomvelo Sivanda, Josephine Nkomo, Audrey Majishaya, and Christabel Chatonzwa. A very experienced squad, Barry. I mean, some of those names are names that we've come to know and love over the last few years.
100%. I mean, you listen to names like Precious Marange, Modesta Mpachikwa, Josephine, as you said earlier, Nkomo, Ashley Ndiraya, Tasmin Granger is a name we've been hearing for a long time, and of course Nomvelo Sivanda. That experience will serve us very well, and we'll see the team at least have a bedrock of players, given that we're playing Pakistan for the first time. It's an unknown entity, but also you need the experienced heads that are able to steady the ship, just in case we're on the sharp end of what seems to be heading towards a shellacking, or we are in a good position and need cool heads to get us over the line. You can always rely on that experience. The sad thing is, I think we'll miss the services of Anisu Mshangwe and Sean Myers. Sean Myers in particular, who was on a rich vein of form. They're both playing in Australia and South Africa. So yes, while it's great that we have experience, but we are missing two key players as well.
And so how are the Lady Chevons going to deal with these absences, Chris? Because Shane Myers has been the mainstay of the team. She's been one of the key players. Who are some of the players that we can look to and say they might be able to plug the hole, as it were?
So there's players who've obviously benefited from some of the key players not being there. Francesca Chipare, Kelly Ndlovu. They are two players who are yet to play for Zimbabwe in terms of international cricket. And you know what? They've had some brilliant performances during the recent interprovincial competitions that we've had in the country. And so their performances there obviously helped them to earn the places in the team. Also, Christabel Chatonzwa and Esther Mbofana, they weren't part of the women's side to represent Zimbabwe in international cricket. I think it was back in May 2019. So they've made the cut this time around, and those players are able to plug the hole. It's great to see new players coming up as well, but also we're able to plug with our slightly more experienced like Chatonzwa and Mbofana as well.
And you can almost see, Mike, just to add on to what Chris is saying, that you can also almost see the fact that Zimbabwe cricket, again, it's a feather in the cap. They've got this continuity that's going on, whereby you've got debutants that have been included in the squad. Hopefully they'll get a bit of time in the middle to replace experienced campaigners. We talked about Anisu Mshangwe and Sean Myers, but there's also Chipo Mugeri Tiripano and Nometa Mtasa, who are not available for this tour on the basis that they're expecting children. And in the act for the Lady Chevrons as yet, and what better time than against some of the high-end teams like your Pakistans.
And of course, Pakistan themselves, they're coming from South Africa. They toured South Africa before coming to Zimbabwe. They lost the one-day international series 3-0 and the T20 international series 2-1. But they do have some game time, which is what our Lady Chevrons will be missing when they take on Pakistan starting tomorrow. Just taking a look at the schedule. Of course, the action gets underway tomorrow, and then the T20 international matches will be played next week on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. The other two 50-over matches are penciled in for this week, Thursday, and on a Sunday. Don't bother showing up to RS Sports Club. They won't open the gates for you because this match or this series will be played behind closed doors. But Zimbabwe Cricket have said the tour will be streamed live on YouTube. That's the place you need to be if you want to back the Lady Chevrons. Go, Zimbabwe, go.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport. Z.
Let's give you a quick local sports news roundup, starting with netball, where Zimbabwe Gems captain Felistas Kwangwa is in line for a debut appearance against London Pulse in England's Netball Super League on Saturday. The 2021 season is set to start on Friday, and due to COVID-19 pandemic, the competition is going to be held across two centralized venues, Studio 001 in Wakefield and the Cooper Box Arena in London. The league will run until the 27th of June, where a grand final is expected to take place.
And you know what, Barry, one of the very interesting things about the league is that I think they've landed themselves a very huge sponsorship deal with Sky now. So there is going to be a lot of exposure. And I'm really hoping that Felistas Kwangwa can do her best there because this could open up endless opportunities for her, not just in terms of the teams that she manages to play for, but also in terms of her own personal brand, endorsements, sponsorships and things like that.
It's actually a wonderful opportunity for Felistas Kwangwa, and not only for her as well, Mike. I think it also opens doors for Zimbabwean players because at least the spotlight will be on Zimbabwe as we are a netballing nation. So hopefully Felistas Kwangwa flies the flag very well. We go on to Paralympics news, where T20 runner Albert Sigele says he is carrying inspiration from his role model Elliot Mujaji as he participates at his first international event at the Dubai 2021 World Para Athletics Grand Prix. The 23-year-old says he will always be motivated by the retired Paralympian who won gold in the 100-meter race at the 2000 and 2004 Paralympic Games. Sigele believes he has worked hard enough to guarantee himself success and qualify for the Tokyo Paralympics. Let's wrap it up with news out of the Premier Soccer League, and it is making plans for the return of domestic football this year with a proposed competition for the restart. A document prepared by the Chief Executive Officer of the PSL, that's Kennedy Ndebele, details plans where teams shall play a round-robin competition over a period of 4 to 5 weeks. The competition will then culminate in a knockout competition, and all the matches will be played behind closed doors. It's a very interesting one, but I'm not sure if it's timely. Shouldn't we just kick off with football proper rather than this tournament format, which is only short term?
Alcohol may be hazardous to health if consumed to excess. The operation of machinery or driving after the consumption of alcohol is not advisable. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18 years.
Castle Lager is more than just beer. It's pure liquid gold, crafted from the finest local ingredients to deliver a taste that is somewhat dry, somewhat bitter, but never sweet. It's the taste that stood the test of time. It all comes together with a castle.
From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
We previewed it for you on Friday, and it more or less lived up to its billing because it was said to be a fight between generations. Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes, but it was Tom Brady who secured his 7th Super Bowl ring as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers blew out defending champions Kansas City Chiefs 31-9 in Super Bowl 55 on home soil at Raymond James Stadium. Brady and Rob Gronkowski rolled back the years as the former New England Patriots pair connected for 2 first-half touchdowns. Brady then threw a touchdown pass to Antonio Brown to see the Bucs up 21-6 at halftime. Bucs running back Leonard Fournette, who had a phenomenal game, scored the 4th touchdown in the 3rd quarter as the Tampa Bay defense prevented the Chiefs from finding the end zone throughout the match. Let's hear from the 7-time Super Bowl champion, Tom Brady.
I'm so proud of all these guys down here. Everything we dealt with all year. We had a rough month in November, but VA had all the confidence in us. The team had a lot of confidence. We came together at the right time. I think we knew this was going to happen tonight, didn't we? I'm not putting any, making any comparisons. Being down here and experiencing it with this group of guys is every year is amazing. And this team is world champions forever. You can't take it away from us. So thank you guys. Thank you all.
Z.
Mikey, he had an efficient performance, but you got to say that as a team, the Buccaneers certainly deserve the victory.
Absolutely, Barry. And after a slow start, both teams experiencing a slow start in that first quarter. But they then soon found their straps, the Buccaneers, and it was really one way from then on. There were flashes where you thought the Chiefs might be able to do something and get back in the game. They had little looks here and there. But over the course of the entire Super Bowl, you've got to say that the Buccaneers were the better side and thoroughly deserved the win. And they were superbly well marshaled by Tom Brady. I mean, it was far from a classic performance as far as quarterback performances are concerned, but the leadership that he brings, the ability for his calmness to just rub onto his teammates, as well as the ability to make the right calls and make the right plays at the right time. That sort of experience, Barry, you can't buy. And that's what he brought to the Bucs, and he's turned them into Super Bowl victors for only the 2nd time in their franchise history.
Mike talks about the E word there, Chris, experience. And you've got to say to yourself that I think experience won the day in this game, because you look at 43 years and 188 days to be specific. That's for when he ran out for the Super Bowl, Tom Brady. And then partnered by another man who had literally walked away from the game, Rob Gronkowski, when he left the Patriots, comes back to the Buccaneers. They team up, and 2 touchdowns later, they are Super Bowl champions.
So that's one of the partnerships, I think, in American football that we've always been able to look at, and it's a partnership that's always worked. So when Gronk went across to join Tom Brady, there was talk of, it's time he retired, and he's a bit tired now. But that partnership once again has won another Super Bowl, and it was a case of experience against the younger, less experienced Chiefs, but in this particular scenario, 43 years old and still being able to win a Super Bowl, absolutely incredible.
That combination, Barry, postseason, I mean, it's a banker. And they used to share, of course, the record for postseason touchdowns with, I think, Joe Montana, the legendary Joe Montana, and Jerry Rice. They had, of course, a total of 12 postseason touchdowns, and Gronk was able to get 13 and 14. So Brady and Gronk now stand alone in that regard. And you've got to say that Brady had pieces around him, Barry, that made the job a lot easier. These guys came in and they put on a shift last night.
They certainly did, in offense and in defense. Great team performance. A quick note about Patrick Mahomes, Chris. You got to say to yourself that he's a man who showed that he's got that X factor that we talked about on Friday when we previewed the Super Bowl. But unfortunately, he came up against a defense that looked like they hadn't been fed and been kept in cages for the week running up to the Super Bowl, because they were hungry. My goodness, they would not let him have any space whatsoever.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay defense was absolutely on point. Shaquille Barrett, Devin White, Levante David, Sean Murphy-Bunting, that combination absolutely dominated the rushing edges, putting a lot of pressure on Mahomes, and that's what managed to also assist in them getting this win. Also, one of their biggest weapons, the Chiefs' biggest weapon, Tyreek Hill, basically what happened was that they tripled and doubled this guy, teamed up on him all night, and he wasn't able to get anything in, and that's also what assisted the Tampa in getting this over.
Let's also not forget that Mahomes was playing with an injury. He's got a toe injury, and I think that's also sort of like limited his movement somewhat. At least it was a challenge to him all night. He's going to have an operation on that. But I think this is an experience that Mahomes is going to learn from. And I think the entire franchise as well. They're going to have to do a bit of introspection, take a look at themselves. Was their attitude right in the lead up to Super Bowl? Did they think that they were a shoo-in in terms of winning this because they were favorites? By any measure, most people were backing back-to-back titles for Mahomes and his boys, and I think it may have got to their heads. Their attitude wasn't right, and the sort of like mistakes that they made, Barry, the penalties that they conceded. I think heading into the break, they had given away about 8 penalties. Now, in a normal game, in a normal postseason game, you expect 8 to be the total amount of penalties for both sides. Yeah. They hit 8 by the break. And when you give Brady and Gronk and guys like that opportunities over and over again, when you give them free yardage, when you give them, it was just made easy. It was already difficult enough, but their mistakes just made the night a lot more easy for Brady and his boys. So, to be honest, you make those amount of mistakes, you're going to get punished. And Tom Brady, he took the full measure.
He did take the full measure, and now cementing his place as the greatest of all time in terms of American football with that 7th Super Bowl ring. But the Super Bowl also has other elements to it, not least of all the halftime show, Chris. I've noticed online it's got mixed reviews for the weekend.
It was rubbish.
I liked it.
Yeah, no, I'm on the other side of the fence. Hey, I think for a halftime performance, it wasn't a fantastic performance. Wasn't a fantastic performance from the weekend specifically. So for me, we've seen better halftime shows, guys.
Yeah, it wasn't Michael Jackson. It wasn't Prince. It was okay. I'll give it a 6 out of 10, but it didn't capture the imagination. And I think after a week, when we get to next week, nobody's going to be talking about it. It was not memorable.
No, nobody will be talking about it, but you know why I liked it? He managed to infuse all the elements that needed to be without being overt about it. He had social distancing in his choir, and even when they went on the field, he had the mask.
Barry, if you have to get philosophical about it, it wasn't a great performance.
Yes, you know, Barry is acting like a high school professor who's marking a music project. No, it's not that. The fans are not that deep. It's either they like it or they don't. It's either memorable or it's not.
Here on ZiFM Sports, we appreciate everyone's opinion. That's my opinion, and we want to hear yours at ZiFM Sport. What did you think of the performance of the weekend in the Super Bowl? Let's talk about rugby next.
Hi, I'm JC Kriel, Springbok and Blue Bulls backline player. You are listening to ZiFM Sports.
Six Nations rugby kicked off this past weekend, and a big victory for Scotland and a shock for England. Gregor Townsend believes Scotland's first win at Twickenham since 1983 could be the nation's greatest ever test victory, and inspired Scotland stunned England with a gritty performance, shaking off Finn Russell's yellow card to prevail 11-6 in West London. Let's hear from Gregor Townsend, the gaffer of Scotland.
Look, I'm very aware of the history. I came down here a number of times as a player and a coach, and not came away with anything. So it's got to be up there with our best ever result in our history, and certainly in my playing and coaching career. I still go back to 3 years ago at BT Murrayfield, just because of the crowd and the atmosphere and the way the players played. But today they were outstanding too, in really tricky conditions. I don't know if that came out in the television, but it was wet the whole game and really heavy rain in the second half. So to win in these conditions against a very good side with that right record they have here is a fantastic achievement from the group of players.
Z. Now bravery, quoting Braveheart, has always been infused in the DNA of Scotland. Michael, was this the quintessential Scottish performance?
It was a fantastic performance, and it was not a lucky performance. They thoroughly dominated England from start to finish, which was something of a surprise because if you take a look, for example, at the packs, England had the weight advantage. I think they had about 37 kgs on the Scots, but in the first half especially, the Scots actually dominated the scrum, which was something of a surprise. They were also carrying very well, breaking tackles, and they generally played a very good game. They used the kicking game very well. Finn Russell especially, I think the only blemish on his performance was that yellow card that he got. Otherwise, he was the man of the match. His kicking, short and long, turning the English around and managing to capitalize, of course, on the broken lines with ball in hand. It was fantastic from Scotland and fully deserved. England, perhaps you can say, you know what, maybe they were rusty, but this is usually a fixture that they win. I mean, we're talking about 1983 here, guys. This predates the likes of Gavin Hastings, Scott Hastings, and players of that ilk, who were able, of course, to put Scotland right up there in terms of world rugby with the regular wins versus the likes of the English. So this is a historic performance, and Scotland, traditionally slow starters in this competition, they have got points on the board, and England are under pressure.
Chris, Mike speaks about the fact that Scotland dominated England. I agree wholeheartedly. And I believe a poignant image was to see Eddie Jones actually come from his higher position onto field level because things were not going according to plan. And I think that is probably the testament that the Scottish game plan was imposed upon England, and they won everything from the set pieces to territory. In all facets of rugby, they were ahead.
They were significantly ahead. It was a bit of a hard watch if you're an England supporter. If you take a look at that scoreline, 11-6, I think it's a little bit flattering to England, to be honest, because Scotland was completely dominant throughout that match in all the areas, like you mentioned. So this the Eddie Jones coming down and taking a look at the game from ground level, I think it's even he was surprised by just how dominant the Scots were performing, and his game plan going into this didn't work at all.
Well, if England's going to win the Six Nations, the Grand Slam is officially off the table. But France, the other one that we tipped to be there or thereabouts right at the end, they were dominant against Italy. 50 points they put past Italy. Now, our producer said that we needed to talk about Italy, and in truth, this is true to form. Sean was absolutely right. 50 points to 10, France prevailing over Italy, and then Wales 21-16 over Ireland.
Hi, I'm Trevor Nyakani, the Blue Bulls and Springbok prop, and now you're listening to ZiFM Sports.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off down under where Serena Williams launched her latest bid for a record-equaling 24th Grand Slam with a 56-minute demolition of Laura Siegemund at the Australian Open. The American said it was vintage Serena as she thrashed the German 6-1, 6-1 in front of a small crowd on Rod Laver Arena. US Open champion Naomi Osaka also made a convincing start with a 6-1, 6-2 win over Russia's Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. Former champion Angelique Kerber was the first seed to be knocked out. We'll head over to Bangladesh, where Kyle Myers made an unbeaten 210 on debut to help West Indies snatch an extraordinary 3-wicket victory over Bangladesh in the first test. Bangladesh declared on 223 for 8 in their second innings, setting West Indies a daunting victory target of 395 in Chattogram. But the touring side were indebted to an inspired display for Myers as they completed the 5th highest successful run chase in Test history. We'll touch down in the United States, where Brooks Koepka upstaged Jordan Spieth and Xander Schauffele as he produced a spectacular finish to win the Waste Management Phoenix Open for the second time. Koepka arrived at TPC Scottsdale on the back of 3 consecutive missed cuts after battling a knee injury for most of 2020, but he stormed back into the winner's circle with a brilliant closing 65.
The lion roars. The warrior beats his drum. Battle lines are drawn in the jungles of Cameroon. It's your Chan 2021 report on ZiFM Sport.
Morocco, the Atlas Lions, became the first team to successfully defend their Chan Trophy with a 2-0 win over Mali in Cameroon last night. Sofiane Boftini headed home the first, and that was followed up by another from Ayoub El Kaibi, who scored 9 goals in 2018 to help Morocco win the title on home soil. Alois, you've got to say that it's just reward for the best team at the tournament, the most attacking team, a team that was full of goals, but also a team that has got proper football structures at home, and their dominance is proof of that.
Exactly, Mike. When we see teams that are like that winning, it actually inspires others. It inspires everybody else. This is reward for hard work, reward for doing proper football structures, reward for doing proper footballing status. This is what we want to see, Mike. We saw it. We saw how organized they are. We saw what they've been doing with football. And these are the fruits. These are the results. We want to see this happening. So I'm happy that Morocco did win, and they're inspiring everybody. And we hope that everybody else is watching, and we can also aspire to do the same as what the Moroccans are doing.
Barry, you talked about Mali. In fact, you tipped them to do well in this final, and for long periods of that game, especially if you've considered the first half, they were very structured, they were very organized, they defended well, they kept Morocco out, but indiscipline in the second half saw them concede and then lose a man later on in the game.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's where the best teams get separated from those that are still getting there, and the ones that are making their walk towards greatness, as it were. And I think Mali is definitely on that trajectory. They've got good ages about them, but Morocco just had too much for them in terms of the full 90 minutes. And a 90-minute game, and if you can't keep your discipline like Mali ultimately didn't, then you're going to have problems, and those problems came up in the second half. However, I think still credit should go to Mali in the fact that they played on the front foot. They played an organized game. They came at Morocco, which almost surprised Morocco, but in the end, after a whole 90 minutes, ultimately the cream always rises to the top.
And of course, Morocco were the better side. One of the things that we saw during the final, Chris, was the use of the video assistant referee, VAR. Much maligned in the English Premier League. Seems to be doing well elsewhere if you consider Germany, Spain and Italy. We saw it being used in this final, and it actually came out to make a major decision towards the end of that game.
Yeah, it actually made a bit of a change in the decision. So basically, the VAR recommended that the referee take a look at the pitch side monitor. And then after some review, he actually reversed his decision and showed Samake a second yellow card. So having that kind of an impact, I think it's incredibly important, especially in a final of this magnitude, to have VAR and to have VAR working well.
Well, let's go to the Club World Cup, which we touched on last week. Of course, Al Ahly is there and they're bidding to play in the final, but standing in their way are the European champions and arguably the best team in the world, Bayern Munich. And their coach, Hansi Flick, has described Pizzo Mosimane as really impressive as the European champions switch to intense preparations for that opener against the Cairo Giants, which will be played tonight. Bayern begin the tournament at the semi-final stage and are in Qatar as they seek a second Club World Cup title, while Al Ahly are bidding for their first ever title. And of course, they'll be up against Tigre, which is from the CONCACAF region, after Palmeiras, who represent South America, were knocked out in the semi-final. So it may well be a banker, this one for Bayern Munich, if they do get to the final, because they would have expected to play Palmeiras, the South American representative, Alois, but they've got 2 matches which they possibly fancy to win.
Yeah, I know, Mike, and this actually looks like it's very mouth-watering. for even our own African representatives, our Akli. Imagine if our Akli beats Bayern Munich. If that happens, they can actually stand a very good chance of actually winning the Club World Cup.
They have a chance.
Yeah, they have a big chance. So they can actually do the unthinkable and beat Bayern, and suddenly they've got a chance to win the Club World Cup. So I actually think that now this is a very interesting situation. Nobody expected Palmeiras to lose, and here we are. They lost, and I think this has actually dampened the prospects of a very good final at this Club World Cup as well, because now we know that it's either the winners of the Palmeiras match and between Bayern Munich and our Akli. Hopefully it's gonna be our Akli and Pitso Mosimane, our own African coach, can actually go on and make history. I hope that he does that. Surprise the Bayern Munich people and go on all the way to win the Club World Cup. That will be history in the making.
Well, Barry, Hansi Flick describes Pitso as impressive. Flattery or respect?
I think it's respect. I think he's obviously looked at videos, and they've done some analysis on how he plays, and I think they've been pleasantly surprised with the tactical approach. He is of course a UEFA Pro holder, and so he's at the same level as your Hansi Flicks of this world. So I'm not surprised that he's said that he's really impressive. But Bayern Munich is a bit of a machine, so he's got a tough task today, old Pitso Mosimane. But football is very strange. Stranger things have happened.
From Rufaro to Barberfield, Mandava to Nyamunga, all the perfect moments in the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League come together on ZiFM Sport.
Let's go to England, and in a familiar tune, it's Blue Moon Rising, because Manchester City travel to Anfield, a venue they haven't had much success at. But Pep Guardiola said Manchester City's stunning 4-1 win at Liverpool was a huge moment for his side, as they put a massive dent in the champions' bid to retain the title. Alois, Anfield hasn't been a happy hunting ground for Pep Guardiola in recent years. In fact, it took him 4 years to win there and get this victory. 4-1, almost symmetry in the result, wasn't there? And in truth, barring the goalkeeping errors, you got to say to yourself, Manchester City looked good value.
Yeah, Manchester City looked very good on the day. Looking at the record as well, it was not just the Pep Guardiola's record. It was actually Man City's record, because they hadn't won at Anfield for a long time themselves. Man City as a club, not just Pep Guardiola. So I think it was a very big win for Man City. But going back to the match, I thought that Man City dominated. First half, it was lukewarm. It was toe-to-toe. But towards the end of the second half, I think Man City changed the gear, switched onto a gear. Maybe they were galvanized by the errors by Alisson. I think it just changed everything. And suddenly, Man City were in the driving seat and they started buzzing. And from there onwards, it was Man City all the way. I still believe that if it wasn't for the blunders by Alisson, Liverpool could have stood their ground. They could have gone on to play probably for a draw. But that blunder, that just changed everything, and there was Man City cruising.
Yeah, and Chris, they talk about momentum shifters in games, and they're varied, and we can't go into all of them because there are lots of momentum shifters. But you got to say, errors by your goalkeeper, the man who's been your safe pair of hands over the period that he's been at the club, certainly was a momentum shifter and may have played a massive role, as Alois is saying, in ultimately where the 3 points went in this game.
Yeah, if you take a look at from that time that he made that goalkeeping error, I think it changed the complexion of the game, and also it gave Manchester City almost a little confidence boost, and that's where you then end up getting a 4-1 scoreline. Is you've basically tipped the scales from a goalkeeping error.
Let's go to Liverpool, Mike, and Liverpool themselves, as Alois again rightly pointed out, were well in this game, created chances in the first half before the momentum shifter. However, there was also a bit of baffling substitution when Shaqiri Milner came on for Thiago and Curtis Jones, who had looked good in that Liverpool midfield.
Yeah, and what happened is that Man City now began to dominate possession because whilst Thiago and Curtis were there, they had the ability to hang on to the ball. Thiago is a very good passer, and so there was a measure of control in midfield, which they lost immediately because Milner and Shaqiri just didn't bring the same quality that the two players that were removed. So it was a bit of a baffling one, and I think it pointed out to perhaps Klopp wanting to secure a draw rather than go on and win the game. But then Man City were able to force, I know we talk about errors, but those were forced errors. And I know we also talk about unforced errors, but I believe they were forced errors. What am I talking about? Good sides will force you into making mistakes. Good sides will put that sort of pressure on you. And that's what happened with Alisson. It was the pressing that was coming in from Manchester City, which meant that he was trying to hurry his passes. He was trying to pass to players that were already covered. The passing channels were blocked. And so that was good from Manchester City. They brought an intensity and a pressure that Liverpool couldn't live with. And Man City went on to win that game 4-1. And yes, we may talk about errors from Alisson, etc. It was a momentum shifter, but that's what sport is all about. Good sides will put pressure on you and you will crack.
They certainly will, and they put pressure on Liverpool, and Liverpool now are certainly looking down the barrel of not being in the title race firstly, and then secondly also having a tough shout for a top 4 finish, which is probably their focus now. Champions League qualification. The rest of the weekend results coming out of England: Burnley and Brighton playing out a 1-1 draw, Newcastle 3-2 victors over the Saints, that's Southampton, Fulham and West Ham in a London derby playing out a 0-0 draw. In other news, Ollie Watkins' second-minute goal proved the winner as Aston Villa's 1-0 victory condemned Arsenal to a second league defeat in 5 days. We could talk about Arsenal, but we have before, Alois. We've got to talk about Aston Villa. Dean Smith has got this entity pulling results out of a hat and out of somewhere where they're not expected to. They are a good side right now, Aston Villa.
Yeah, surprisingly, we were talking about them facing the chop last season, and when we did our verdict, we actually said that he should go. Dean Smith should be dismissed.
Thank you, guys. At this moment, can you all eat humble pie? Because
yeah, we do.
All said, Dean Smith has
I think he has proved us wrong. They are doing well, and if you look at their position as well, they are doing well, and they don't look like they are going to be struggling this season, and they are chalking good results as well. Beating Arsenal is no mean feat, guys, because Arsenal looked like a team that was in resurrection as well, and they actually beat them. And also, I'm very happy with the way Marvelous Nakamba actually acquitted himself in that game. These are the big matches that we actually look and see how he's gonna do it. But he actually did well. A lot of people are still coming and say he is doing the basics, he is not being extra. But yeah, his position requires him to play it simple. He can do more, yes, he can demand the ball more. I think he has been fantastic. Going forward, yes, he needs to ask for the ball more, but I think that he is doing well and deserves to play a lot more games.
And the great thing, Alois, is that Marvelous Nakamba has started in matches for Aston Villa against Burnley, Newcastle, and now Arsenal. And Aston Villa has kept clean sheets in all 3. The rest of the results are Tottenham 2-0 victors over West Bromwich Albion, Wolves a 0-0 draw with Leicester City, Sheffield United beaten at home by Chelsea, who are looking good value under Thomas Tuchel. Chelsea winning that game 2-1. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's 95th minute equaliser sealing a second sensational comeback for Everton at Manchester United in a 3-3 thriller at Old Trafford, and Heung-min Son and the returning Harry Kane scored as Tottenham ended a run of 3 Premier League defeats with a 2-0 win against West Bromwich Albion, which we talked about earlier. Tonight's game, Leeds entertained Crystal Palace.
Alcohol may be hazardous to health if consumed to excess. The operation of machinery or driving after the consumption of alcohol is not advisable. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18 years.
Castle Lager is more than just beer. It's pure liquid gold, crafted from the finest local ingredients to deliver a taste that is somewhat dry, somewhat bitter, but never sweet. It's the taste that stood the test of time. It all comes together with a castle.
Heading into Italy now, your Serie A results from this past weekend. Atalanta and Torino drew 3-3. Sassuolo going down against Spezia 2-1. Juventus head coach Andrea Pirlo lauded Cristiano Ronaldo's adaptability as defending Serie A champions beat Roma 2-0. Alois, on Friday we talked about this being a good test to see if Juventus were really on a good run of form, and they've managed to do it, and Juventus might actually still have a realistic chance of making that title challenge.
Yeah, they show that they are indeed on the rise and they are coming back to winning ways as well. And look at them now, they beat Roma. This is actually a true statement that they are in with a chance. And we have always said that you can never rule out Juventus. Remember, there was a time when 14 games in, they were almost at the bottom of the log, but they climbed their way up. And this is what they do. They need to be checked. If you're trying to win this year championship, you need to check what Juve are doing. They need to be losing games while you're winning. The problem with Italy is that the championship contenders, they chop points from each other while Juve keeps on climbing up. And they're back in contention. And when they are back, it's very difficult to dislodge them. And I'm afraid that they might just go on and win this Scudetto again.
Some more results. Genoa beat Napoli 2-1. Benevento and Sampdoria drew 1-1. And Udinese beat Hellas Verona 2-0. AC Milan coach Stefano Pioli was happy with his side's 4-0 victory over Crotone, as the result took Milan back to the top of the table. Bologna beating Parma 3-0 and Lazio with a 1-0 win over Cagliari. Internazionale had a comfortable 2-0 win at Fiorentina thanks to goals from Nicolo Barella and Ivan Perisic on a Friday night. Quick look at the Serie A table. AC Milan sits right at the top, Inter in second place, Juventus sits in third, and AS Roma in fourth.
Right, let's give you the rest of your European roundup, starting in Spain. Your results: Real Valladolid going down at home 1-0 to Alaves. Levante and Granada played out a 2-2 draw, as did Elche and Villarreal. Sevilla were too good for Getafe 3-0, while Real Sociedad welcoming back David Silva beat Cadiz 4-1. Athletic Club and Valencia played out a thrilling and very entertaining 1-1 draw, and Osasuna beat Eibar 2-1. Elsewhere, Ronald Koeman's Barca continued their perfect start to La Liga in the year 2021 with a 3-2 win at Real Betis, which extends their winning streak to 6 games on the trot. You've got to say, Barry, that Ronald Koeman looking like he's getting his act together, slowly but surely.
He certainly is, and listen, he's getting the response from the players that he wants. Messi kept on the bench, held back in this game, and then when he went on, changed the game like he ought to, like Lionel Messi does. So I think if Lionel Messi is doing what Lionel Messi does, Pedri's doing the right thing, Griezmann, all of them, then we're in, I say we, yes, I'm a Barcelona fan, but Barcelona are in good hands.
Barca's arch rivals Real Madrid, they won 2-1. It was a come-from-behind victory. Rafael Varane scoring a brace as Real Madrid, the champions, beat the bottom club. A quick look at the La Liga standings. Atletico Madrid, they are leading the way. They have 50 points from their 19 games played. In second is Barcelona with 43 points, same points as Real Madrid, who are in third but have an inferior goal difference. Sevilla are in the fourth and final Champions League place. There's action tonight. It's Atletico Madrid, the pace setters, taking on Celta Vigo. Over to Germany, where there were some very interesting results. Borussia Dortmund conceding 2 goals in 3 minutes to slump to a 2-1 loss at Freiburg, as to drop 16 points behind leaders Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich unaffected by heavy snowfall and freezing temperatures as they beat Hertha Berlin 1-0, and they remain 7 points clear at the top of that table. Second place is RB Leipzig. Wolfsburg have stormed to third. Eintracht Frankfurt playing some good football. They are in fourth place. Borussia Dortmund are now in sixth.
Borussia Dortmund in sixth. My goodness. Now there's a bombshell. Good place for us to end. We'll be back tomorrow. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manandi, out.
Out.